Are you or anyone else in danger right now?
I'm sure everybody is around him right now.
The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder.
On a warm October evening in 2019, the city of Fort Myers, Florida, was about to be shaken by a series of events that would unveil the face of true evil. Wade Wilson, a man with a troubled past and a history of violence, was about to embark on a horrific crime spree that would leave 2 innocent women dead and a community in shock. This is the story of how one man's actions devastated families, challenged law enforcement, and tested the bonds of loyalty and justice. Wade Wilson's story begins long before his crimes made headlines. Born to teenage parents who were ill-equipped to raise a child, Wilson was put up for adoption at birth. His biological father, Stephen Testaseka, was just 14 or 15 years old when Wilson was born. The young couple made the difficult decision to have their son adopted by family friends from their church, Candy and Steve Wilson. From a young age, Wilson exhibited signs of delinquency. His teenage years were marked by frequent run-ins with the law, indicating a pattern of behavior that would only worsen with time. Friends and acquaintances from his early years often described him as a rebellious individual with a penchant for trouble. Wilson's first significant encounters with the law involved petty theft and vandalism. These early offenses, though minor in comparison to his later crimes, showcased his disregard for authority and societal norms. He was frequently involved in stealing small items from local stores and vandalizing property, actions that resulted in multiple warnings and minor legal consequences. As he grew older, Wilson's criminal activities became more violent. He was involved in several physical altercations, both at school and in his neighborhood. These incidents often led to charges of assault and battery, further entrenching him in the criminal justice system. His propensity for violence was evident, with each altercation escalating in severity. Wilson's teenage years also saw the beginning of his involvement with drugs. Initially, he was a user, but he soon transitioned into distributing narcotics. His drug-related activities included the sale of marijuana and later, more potent substances like methamphetamine. This involvement in the drug trade not only fueled his criminal behavior, but also introduced him to a network of similarly inclined individuals. During his late teens, Wilson began associating with known criminal gangs. These associations provided him with a sense of belonging and protection, but they also exposed him to more organized and violent criminal activities. One of the most notable gangs he was linked to later in his criminal career was the white supremacy gang Unforgiven, known for its violent activities and strict codes of loyalty. By his mid-20s, Wilson had already accumulated a substantial criminal record, with over 20 arrests since 2010 for charges including fraud, trespassing, and physical abuse. He was classified as a habitual offender. This pattern of behavior foreshadowed the violence that was to come. On the evening of October 6, 2019, Wade Wilson and his girlfriend of 6 months, Melissa Montanez, went to the Buddha Bar in Fort Myers for what should have been a typical night out. However, the evening took a dark turn when an argument erupted between the couple. Wilson, frustrated by Melissa's refusal to leave with him, stole her 2015 Dodge Hellcat and abandoned her at the bar. Little did Melissa know that this act of petty theft was just the beginning of a terrifying ordeal. The next morning, Wilson began calling her incessantly from unknown numbers, demanding to meet. Fearing for her safety due to his history of violence and drug use, Melissa agreed to meet him in public at her workplace. When Wilson arrived at Melissa's workplace, he was driving an unfamiliar black Nissan Versa. As Melissa approached the car to confront him about her stolen vehicle, Wilson became aggressive. He attempted to force her into the car, leading to a physical altercation that escalated quickly. Melissa described the horrifying moments. "I start to get beat, whether it be punches, slapping, choking. I'm trying to reason with him, but there's nobody behind those eyes anymore." The assault moved from the parking lot to a nearby staircase, where Melissa desperately clung on, hoping for help to arrive. Miraculously, she managed to break free and seek refuge in a nearby business. By 8:48 a.m., Fort Myers police had arrived on the scene, but Wilson had already fled. As the police began their search for Wilson, A disturbing discovery was made in Cape Coral, about 10 miles away.
We have an update on a story that we've been following all day. Cape Coral police confirmed that they are investigating the death of a woman who lived on Tudor Drive. That woman has been identified as 35-year-old Christine Melton. Viewers tell us she is a waitress, and those we spoke to said they didn't see Melton very often and were wondering what happened.
The body of 35-year-old Christine Melton, a beloved waitress described by friends as a protector who loved fiercely, was found in her home on Tudor Drive. Her black Nissan Versa, the same car Wilson had been seen driving earlier, was missing from her driveway. The horrors didn't end there. Later that day, 43-year-old Diane Ruiz, a mother of two who worked at the local Moose Lodge, was reported missing after failing to show up for her morning shift. Her purse was found abandoned along a roadway, raising immediate concerns of foul play. As the community reeled from these shocking events, Wade Wilson was still at large, leaving a trail of violence and fear in his wake. The Fort Myers and Cape Coral police departments launched an intensive manhunt for Wade Wilson. Officer Tim McCormick of the Fort Myers PD spotted a vehicle matching the description of Christine Melton's stolen Nissan Versa in the parking lot of a Joe's Crab Shack restaurant. When he approached the car, he found Wilson inside. What followed was a tense confrontation captured on the officer's body camera. Despite McCormick's attempts to detain him peacefully, Wilson managed to start the car and flee the scene, narrowly missing the officer as he sped away. As the search for Wilson intensified, investigators received a crucial break in the case. Earlier, detectives had contacted Wilson's biological father, Stephen Testaseca, asking him to alert the police if Wilson called. That evening, Testaseca received several disturbing calls from his son. In court testimony, Testaseca recounted the chilling details of these conversations. Wilson confessed to killing two people, describing how he had choked Christine Melton while she slept and later dumped her body. He also admitted to picking up Diane Ruiz under the pretense of asking for directions, only to strangle her while driving. Testaseca, torn between loyalty to his son and the gravity of his crimes, made the difficult decision to help law enforcement. He managed to obtain Wilson's location by telling him he would send an Uber, then relayed this information to the police. Armed with this information, the U.S. Marshals Service and the Regional Fugitive Task Force tracked Wilson to a house he had broken into. After about 30 minutes of verbal commands, Wilson surrendered and was taken into custody without further incident. During his time in jail, Wilson allegedly made a phone call to his ex-girlfriend Melissa, confessing to the murders of Christine Melton and Diane Ruiz. He admitted over the phone to me that he killed both those women, Melissa later reported. He strangled both of them. He said he just felt like it. He said he was on drugs, and it messed him up. On November 19, 2019, approximately 6 weeks after the deaths of Christine Melton and Diane Ruiz, State Attorney Amira Fox held a press conference to announce the indictment of Wade Wilson. The Lee County Grand Jury had returned an indictment against Wilson for 2 counts of first-degree premeditated murder. Additional charges included 1 count each of battery, grand theft of a motor vehicle, burglary of a dwelling, and first-degree petty theft. The road to trial was long and fraught with delays. Numerous continuances and pre-trial motions pushed the start date back several years. During this time, Wilson underwent a notable physical transformation, adding numerous facial tattoos, including Nazi symbols. This led to a request from the defense to allow facial makeup to cover these tattoos during the trial, arguing they could prejudice the jury. Although the court granted this request, the defense ultimately chose not to use the makeup. Adding to the complications, Wilson allegedly attempted to escape from custody, further delaying the proceedings. Finally, on June 10, 2024, nearly 5 years after the crimes were committed, the trial of Wade Wilson began. A jury was seated, and opening arguments were heard in what was now a capital case. Throughout the trial, multiple witnesses came forward to report that Wilson had confessed to the murders of Melton and Ruiz. Interestingly, the defense did not dispute many of the facts in the case. Instead, they argued for diminished responsibility, at one point claiming Wilson was just whacked out of his mind. After hearing all the evidence and testimony, The jury deliberated for approximately 2 hours before reaching a verdict. Wade Wilson was found guilty on all counts, including the first-degree murders of Christine Melton and Diane Ruiz.